Hey everyone, welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. This is a really fun episode because I'm actually getting to do this live in the studio with my friend Crystal, and she is a homeschool mama. She's got 8 kids, and you have been homeschooling for how long?
23 years.
23 years. Okay. So you've been at this for a little while.
A little bit.
But yeah, it's really fun to actually have someone with me side by side, because usually we have to do this from the computer through Zoom or something else.
Yeah.
And so it's fun to actually get to sit side by side with you and talk about homeschooling. So meet my friend Crystal. I'm excited for you to meet her. And I know this is going to be a really encouraging episode. So
it's good to be here.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to come and chat with me about homeschooling. So 23 years, you've got 8 kids and a daughter-in-law.
That's right.
Tell me about homeschooling and how you got started on this journey of homeschooling.
Okay. Let's see. When I was in the 9th grade, my parents just felt the call to homeschool us, my sister and I. And it was during the mid-'80s. So really the only people that homeschooled were the foreign missionaries. So it's very unusual. At the time, there wasn't a lot of curriculum and not a lot of help for homeschoolers, but they were determined that's what they were supposed to do. And I'm just so thankful they did, because it was during that time, those high school years, that I had, especially with my mom, to develop a relationship with her that has just been, she became my best friend. And of course, academics were a part of it. But there was so much relationship building and heart molding during that time that really inspired me I wanted at that time to hopefully someday do that with my children. And we have been able to. My husband, John, has been supportive since the beginning and been very much a part of our homeschooling journey. And so I'm just grateful to have had a good start from my own parents and to have the privilege of doing it all these years. So
now, is this something that you guys talked about when you were dating? Did you talk about how you wanted to homeschool, or was this kind of not something you?
I think we probably did. I know we did, because he knew I was homeschooled in high school. So his mom, she's such a wonderful woman, and she taught school in the school system for 33 years. Wow. And I think at first I was wondering if she would be supportive. This was before we were married, because we did discuss it, and she was wholeheartedly for it.
Wow.
Because she'd been in the system so long and she'd seen so much, and she hoped someday that her grandchildren wouldn't have to experience some of the things that she'd actually had to deal with. So she too has been an amazing support through the years and helped us along. And some of our little special situations with some of our kids needed some extra training and education in different areas, especially in reading. We had some dyslexia and things like that. And she just jumped in and helped me and supported us through those times. So John was always on board for it too. He really was. So
that's cool. That seems very unusual, especially for back in those days, and for the in-laws to be supportive of it, because even today, with homeschooling as big and accepted as it is, there are so many in-laws who just are not accepting of it, and family members. And simply it's because they don't understand what homeschooling is and the benefits. And then it seems like every story across the board, grandma and grandpa or aunts and uncles or friends will be unsupportive. They're going to say, no, you're messing up your kids. Yeah. This is a terrible idea. And then they see the end result and they change their minds. It happens all the time. So that's really, that's a great thing.
It is. It was. And through the years, I've seen how, what a benefit it has been, because we haven't had to fight with, parents or in-laws trying to stay, keep our stance on it. They've been both sides very encouraging and loving and helpful.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So you started being homeschooled yourself in the 80s, and you're still homeschooling. Your kids range in age from 10 to 26. Okay. So you have a pretty big range there, but you're still homeschooling. You're right in the middle of it.
I am.
How have you seen the shift of homeschooling in the homeschool community from the 80s until today?
Oh, a major shift from the 80s. like I said, there wasn't a lot back then. We didn't have access to the internet like we do now. We couldn't search for things. I remember my mom would, when we first started homeschool, she called Bob Jones University Press and said, I just need a biology book and a teacher's manual. And they said, why do you need one book? That's we can sell you 30 books and a teacher's manual, but she didn't need 30. So, but they just didn't break it up. That it wasn't done yet.
Right.
And so she worked really hard to create curriculum for us. And so now you can an internet search and you have pages and pages of options.
Yes.
For every age. So it's great. On one hand, obviously, it makes it much easier to make informed decisions. But on the other hand, it can be very overwhelming, the amount of curriculum that's out there and trying to decide what's right for us. And
yes.
So, and then support, there's lots of support groups now. There's lots of communities around that are connecting with one another. So you're not out there homeschooling alone.
Yeah, which is really important. We talk a lot about community and the importance of coming together and finding other homeschool families. And I think oftentimes people will think, well, there's not a community around me. Well, make one, start one because there are, I mean, if you're homeschooling and you're feeling alone, I'm certain that there are other families who are homeschooling and feeling the same way. And so it's a great way to reach out to other families who are probably in need of that fellowship and community and support as well. So
definitely.
Yeah. So what has homeschooling looked like for your family, and has it changed through the years? I mean, you've been doing this now for 23 years. Has your philosophy and your way of homeschooling your kids changed through the years?
I don't think there's been a lot of change fundamentally. Now, every one of them has been very different. Every child is different. So what works for one doesn't always work for another. I mean, we all say that about our children. And so, and over time, better options have become available. So maybe what I used with our oldest for science in high school, I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use something that's better for us now. So that has changed. But, fundamentally what we've done, I've always been, I'm a big believer in routine and keeping things in order. And so that has been kind of the foundational building block there that we go from. And beyond that, it looks different maybe every year, a little different. Now, some curriculums I've used forever because they work. Yeah. And I'm not going to try to, recreate the wheel or whatever. So that's probably the only change I've seen is just over time, what's, better curriculum.
Yeah. So you're really good at systems and figuring out. And this is one of the things I love about homeschooling. And I love about this podcast because we've talked to a lot of different people, and you've got the people like yourself who really enjoy having a system and enjoy having routine. And that's what works great for your family. And then there are those who do more of the kind of life schooling, unschooling, method, and that works great for their family. And you've got those who do classical education and those who do Charlotte Mason. And it's such a beauty that we can do that. And it gives us the freedom to be able to do what works best with our family dynamics and our family's personalities. But I love that you have come up with some systems, and you actually have a book for those who are watching this on video called 7 Peas in a Pod. You can see this, A Purposeful System for Homeschooling Success. You wrote this book a couple of years ago, right? About 2 years ago. So you wrote this actually from real experience. It wasn't just, this is what I'm going to try out and see if it works. Right. You've actually written this because you've done it firsthand. Talk to us about your book and what's in it.
Okay. It's just really a collection of my system that I've used for years and that's worked for us through many, many different life changes and ages and many different types of learning skills and levels. So it's been a system that I over the years, it was early on, I started to recognize what was important in our homeschool day and how to keep it important and how to keep it the main thing and not lose sight of our goals. So that's kind of where it kind of stemmed from. And so the book is very, very simple. It's not a hard process or anything terribly complicated. Personally, I feel like it can be used any kind of homeschooling out there. If you're super structured, or if you're an unschooler, or if you're a classical homeschooler, or Charlotte, all these that you mentioned, I use a lot of those ideas within that because I researched so much early on to find out what we wanted to do. And so the book just kind of outlines a system. Yes, it is a system, and 7 different steps to this system. And you want me to go through those
steps?
Yes,
I would love for you to. Yes, let's go through them. The first one, I've called it 7 P's in a pod because each one is starts with a P. And so the first one is to pray for wisdom. And that probably can go without being said, but that's something that's the place where we all have to start. Yep. Is
praying for wisdom as we endeavor to train the hearts of our children, train the minds of our children. And so first one is pray for wisdom. And then the second one is to personalize with goals. And so from there, I actually have a little goal sheet that I have used for years for every child and myself. And at the beginning of our school year, or when I'm getting ready to prepare for the new school year, I pull out a goal sheet, put their name at the top, and I go through 5 different areas that I would like to, goals I have for them. And when they get to be middle school, or high school, we sit down with that goal sheet together.
Okay. Talk about that goal sheet a little bit, because I want to know what you have on there.
Spiritual goals, physical goals, relational goals, academic goals, and I'm going to have to look it up in my book. Off the top of my head, it's not coming to me real quick. But so like, for instance, I would do this even with my infants. So I had a newborn, and I was getting ready to go into school year with newborn. What are the physical goals I have for my newborn? That would be that she would nurse well, that she would learn how to nurse well. That would be something that we're successful at. That she would take 2 naps a day. Those are physical goals. And so maybe that she would learn to have mat time all by herself and lay on the mat and be content to play. Those are things that we would work on. Maybe her spiritual goals for that infant would be, I want to be sure I'm turning on the scripture music at night so that she's hearing that scripture being played. So those, it's super simplified, and it's things I should be doing already. But for me, it helps if I can get it on paper.
Yeah.
And then I am more likely to remember it and do it. So, and then of course with like a teenager or something, if we go to physical goals, it might be, which sports do you want to play? And how are we going to incorporate those into our week? And, or maybe it's a spiritual goal. Are you ready to start maybe leading a Bible study with some peers or someone younger, a group younger than you? So it's just all the things that they may wish to do, or that my husband and I think that would be worthy goals for our younger ones to do. That's what we put on that sheet. And the academic goals would be, I write down that year what I'd like for them to do. Are they in math, a 4? Then I want them, if they're in 4th grade-ish, then, math is on there, and grammar's on there, and writing, and what history do I want to focus on this year, and what science are we going to do, how are we going to do it? So those academic goals are there each year. And so I take everybody, and then myself as well. What are my goals for this year? And I write those in. And again, I mentioned speaking with my husband about it because I feel like he's very much part of that. So we share that together. And maybe you're a single mom and you don't have that luxury. Well, whatever older godly man God has put in your life, whether it's a pastor or a father who can help direct you as well to get that input. That's what I would encourage on that. So does that answer your questions about goals?
It does. And the last one is ministry goals.
Ministry goals. Yes. There it is. Thank you. Thank you for looking. Yes, ministry goals. And that's really a super important one.
Yeah.
Because I think so often we want to think that ministry starts when we're adults.
Right.
but ministry can start much, much younger than that. And so to have our children aware that is a topic in their goals that they need to be thinking about early on.
Yes. Yes. I think it's one of the greatest things about homeschooling is that you can serve in ministry together as a family. And we've talked about this on the podcast before. I actually did a podcast a while back with Elizabeth Johnston, and we talked about how as homeschool families, we have more time. And it's not that other families who don't homeschool don't have the opportunity to do ministry together. But as homeschoolers, we have more time with our kids because we're with them and they're not coming home and having to do homework and having to go to, sports and stuff. And so we have this great privilege of being able to be involved in ministry together as a family. And I love that dynamic of homeschooling. And I love with your goals that you don't have academics at the top. Academics are important, of course. And we talk about that all the time. Our kids have to learn about the world around them so that they can better understand their creator. But academics are not the most important thing. Their walk with the Lord and their character is so much more important than the academics.
Exactly.
So
it's certainly not the top of the list, but everything in balance.
Yes.
Definitely. But we do enjoy the ministry goals. We have been able to see through the years because of the time. We don't have to devote 7 hours a day to our schooling.
Right.
So we can devote a good bit of time to other things, ministry. Sure. Even now, some of the stuff the girls are doing this year with their quote ministry, one of their ministry goals was, I call it connect. And so they have certain loved ones that they connect with through a letter or an email or phone call every week.
Wow.
And some of them are every other week. It depends on, and with siblings now away from home, they have a chance to stay connected with them and their busy lives that way. So I think that's been one of the sweetest things we've seen, just because now our family is so split. We have half at home and half away living and doing their own things. And so for our younger ones to still be able to connect up with those older ones and with grandparents living away and that sort of thing.
That is so cool. I love that so much. Okay, so what's the next one?
Third one is to peruse curricula.
Okay.
And that's to start looking through all of the options out there through the lens of your goals. Will this particular curriculum fill some of these goals? Will it actually fulfill some of these goals? Do they match? Do they mesh? And so that's why goals are really important to put out first.
Yes.
Because then you can choose according to what the needs are.
Sure. You know what direction
you're going in. So that's helpful because there is, like I said earlier, so much out there. It's just overwhelming at times.
Do you do homeschool conventions?
I did for years.
Okay.
I really did. They're excellent. And not that I've too good for it or outgrown it. I just think I have done it a long time now, and I feel really good and secure about some of the things that I am using, all the things I'm using.
Sure.
So at this point, I read still, but I'm not actually attending at this point.
Yeah.
But they're great, and I encourage it.
Yes, they're great, but they can be completely overwhelming. I mean, we are definitely in favor of homeschool conventions, but I think that there are some things people need to know before attending a convention.
Definitely.
It can completely undo you if you go and you're not prepared for what is there. And I remember before we started homeschooling, a friend of mine said, talk to several people, figure out what they use for their curriculum, and then kind of focus on those things.
Exactly.
When you go to the convention, she said, do not stop at every single table and look at every single thing that's out there.
That's right.
And so it's great because that's exactly what I did. And so I knew specifically what I wanted to look for. And of course, I saw all kinds of other things that were exciting and interesting. But it's hard to not get caught up in the excitement and feel like, well,
we should do that too.
We should do that too. Right. Exactly. And then you come home with 100 books and you're like, okay, kids, here we go.
Yeah. What do we do with all this?
Yeah.
No, that's again, creating that goal list before you go to a convention. And a matter of fact, when we used to go, I would create my goal list. I would look for curriculum online or in the magazines that came. And I pretty much decided before I went so that I could just go touch it and feel it and verify that this is really what I thought it was from what I read. And it did help to kind of keep the focus and not have all of that in your face at one time.
Yes.
So definitely a good plan on
that's
that.
fantastic.
So the next thing, number 4, is to plug into a time schedule spreadsheet. And this may really annoy some people.
It's okay. Some people really need it.
But it's and actually I have it available to once, if you read the book or get the book or you want information, you can just email me about it and I send a template. That's basically all it is. It's just your day sectioned off in 30-minute sections. And it's super helpful for a large family, I found, because I could plug in if I was going to sit down and nurse for 30 minutes, I needed to know what everybody else was going to be doing during that time. Right. They needed to know what they were going to be doing during that time.
Yeah.
So they weren't just doing nothing.
Right.
And so that was a great value early on, was to have when I knew that I would not be available for a 30-minute segment or 15-minute segment, they had instructions on what to do and what they would be aware of. Also, it helped with all the little chores that are so good for our children to do. If they knew what time of day or when they should be doing those and what they were, that time chart was super helpful with that. Also, when on that, I would put who I was going to spend one-on-one time with at that during a certain time of the day. So when the kids saw, okay, this is, and I color coded it. So maybe it was lavender. Okay, mom's going to be with Millie during that time. So I'm not going to interrupt mom that's their time.
Yeah.
And here's my color down here. My time's coming.
Yeah.
I can hold my questions until then. And I know I'm going to get my time too. So it helped them to know how to respect our time with one another and to also know my time is coming. It's not, it gave a lot of security.
Sure.
As boundaries tend to do, so that's the value in that. The truth of the matter is, I don't know if there's ever been a day that we followed it to the minute. It's not really.
I'm glad to hear you say that.
It's not really meant for that.
Right.
It's really just meant for a guide.
Sure. Some kind of structure to your day.
So if I'm supposed to be sitting down at 9 o'clock to do history in the morning, but the phone rings and it's the doctor's office and I have got to take this call. And 45 minutes later, I get off the phone and I think, what do I do now?
Right.
Without this, I may say, well, this day is a wash. Everybody's scattered. I don't know what else. I don't even know where to pick up. So that just says, okay, I should have been finished with history by now and moving on to science. I think we're going to skip science today because I feel like history is where we need to be. So I'm just going to move back into history and just follow along from there.
So you're flexible with it.
Oh, very flexible with it. Very flexible with it. It's not meant to be a ball and chain.
Yeah. Good.
It's meant to free you.
Yes.
It's not meant to bind you up. And it does free. It really does. Or I found that there's freedom in it. I better move along. Let's see. The number 5 is plan 180 perfect days. And there's a template for that as well. And I literally sit down in a weekend, usually, or for years I did it in a weekend. My husband would give me some time away and literally away from the home, take all my stuff with me, my computer and everything, and just plan each person's year, write it all out in this template, and then print it off. And they had a checkbook, something they could check off every day. And again, it's a guide. It's 180 days, but there have been many years that those 180 days have turned into 220 days just because things came up.
Sure.
But the point is, if I know what I'm supposed to do on Monday, these are all the things I'm supposed to do on Monday, but I'm sick on Monday. I can't do school. I just can't.
Yeah.
Well, I can't skip Monday schoolwork, but I can on Tuesday do Mondays and I can just start shifting over. And I know that when I finished this checklist that's, 36 pages long, it's 36 weeks, then I've completed all the things that I set out to do this year in school.
Yeah.
So it may take more than 36 weeks. I've had some kids that have just been super motivated, and they'll finish earlier than that because it's all listed out there. And if you want to push ahead, you can.
Yeah.
So that's the value in that. And there was a certain time in our life where I had to be gone a lot. We just had a lot going on, and the demand was I had to be away from our home. So my mother-in-law would come in. She knew what to do.
Yeah, because you had it all spelled out.
It was all there.
Right.
It was kind of like a substitute teacher.
Yeah.
And she could see what was there, and we didn't lose time, so to speak. People were occupied still and purposeful and intentional about their lives. So that's the benefit of that too, I think, when we don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
And if we do have a plan out there, then Dad can pick it up, or Grandma can pick it up,
or the older kids can pick it up.
Older kids did a lot. And so that's the value in that. So it takes some time ahead, but it just gives me such freedom because I am not wondering if I'm going to make sure I get it all in that year. Did I do enough? I trust that that's what God led me to do. I've got it all down, and now I'm going to go with it.
Yeah.
I can run with it. And if something comes up and we want to go have some fun with a group of other kids, other homeschoolers, we don't have to do school that day.
Right.
We will do it. But we don't do it that day.
Right.
So anyway, it's flexible even though there's structure in it. So
love that.
The next one is purge unnecessary stuff. And that is, I always try to do that in the summer between, some people school all year and some people take off a week or two here, or school for 3 weeks and off a week, whatever you do, whenever you have that little bit of time where you're not having to focus on school. I go through closets, and I go through drawers, and I go through school supplies, and
Just simplify.
Yep. Get rid of stuff. I go through the kitchen, everything in our home. I try to go through and just get rid of the fluff and not, it just weighs us down. It does. And it's a great way to start a homeschool year where you feel like you've kind of purged some things away, because during school, you just can't do everything. You can't get everything done all the time. You can't always clean out all the drawers, or you can't always do these things. So it gives you a fresh kind of slate, a good start again on the new year. And so there's that. And then the last one there, number 7, is pick up where you left off. And I alluded to that a minute ago. There was one year we had Christmas break, and then we were starting back to school, I don't know, January 4th or something like that. And our oldest son we had 8 at home. So our oldest son got sick with the flu. And then in just days, everybody just started dropping.
Oh, no.
So of the 10 of us in our home, 9 of us got the flu.
Oh, no.
And so it took a month, a full month
imagine.
My husband was the only one that didn't get the flu.
Wow.
And so he apparently had gotten the strain earlier. And so he was fine. And he cared for us for a month, but there was no school to be done. I couldn't get out of bed. They couldn't function. We literally just had to lay around for a month between everybody getting it and trying to get better. And so all I could do was close the books. And then when February 1st rolled around and everybody was alive again, we said, okay, well, let's just pick up where we left off. We don't have to, we really didn't lose anything.
Sure.
We just start where we left off. And if we have to, go into June or whatever, that's fine.
Right. Yeah.
It's okay. We're in control of this. So that's what that's for. It's because we do get derailed.
Yes.
It just happens. Life is that way. And so the value of having a system in place is you're ready for that, and you don't have to scramble or fret or call a year a wash or anything. You can keep moving through it.
Yeah.
So.
I love that. Okay. So the book is called 7 Peas in a Pod, A Purposeful System for Homeschooling Success. And I love all of the things that you cover in this book. And it's a really short book. It's an easy read. You mentioned that you have a couple of templates that you can email out. Do you want to give your email so that people can
request
those?
Fine. It's 7P 7 P's in a pod. So 7PSINAPOD.
Okay.
At gmail.com.
Okay, perfect. So we'll link to that in the show notes, and then we'll link to the book as well, because you can get this book on Amazon.
That's right.
Actually, so we'll link to both of those so people can do it. We're almost out of time, but I want to ask you one more quick question. One of the things that we find across the board when talking to homeschool moms is that they almost never feel like they're equipped, that they're good enough, that they're educated enough, that they're ready to homeschool their kids. Did you feel that way, or did you go into this feeling like, yep, I've got this, I can totally do this?
Did I feel that way? I do feel that way. I've never not felt that way. But I think that's one of the most beautiful parts about homeschooling, is that it is not up to me.
That's right.
And I've told my kids this for years. And we've prayed for years that the Lord would fill in the gaps. There are so many gaps in our homeschooling. I look back and I think, how did they learn anything? It's because the Lord was there.
Yeah.
And therefore he gets the honor and the glory. I don't get it.
That's
if I could do it all, then why would I need him?
Right.
And he would not get any glory. It would be all about me and how good I've done. And the things that my older kids are doing now that the Lord. So
I want to talk about that actually. I want, and not because I want you to brag about them as their mom, but because of what you just said. It's all what God has done.
It is.
And it's pretty amazing to look at your adult children. Talk a little bit about what they're doing as adults right now. Okay.
They are such a blessing. They're so precious. The Lord has been extremely good to us in the many, many ways. And one of those is through the relationships we have with our children, and having the 4 oldest children out of the home and what they're doing. So our oldest is 26, and he is a naval flight officer. So he's a lieutenant junior grade in the Navy. So he's flying helicopters, and he's over in Milton, Florida. And I do believe I could say that he's probably my husband's best friend. It's very, very sweet of the Lord to give us that. And then our second son is married to the most precious woman in the world. And he is in his first year of medical school.
Wow.
And that's, again, both of those are just the Lord just filling in so many gaps. And just thankful for that, and the way they applied themselves and were diligent, and they sought to honor the Lord. And they were normal, and they made some big mistakes, and we made some big mistakes, and the Lord redeemed even those things. And then our third is a daughter. She's a senior at Georgia Southern. So she'll be a nurse very soon. And then our fourth is another son, and he's at GSU as well in business economics, a junior. So he's doing that. And all of our second son calls me every day and just keeps me a part of his life. Our daughter who's away, and our son as well. Just that relationship. And that's what we wanted to begin with, was that relationship. And then to also see the beautiful blessing and benefit of how the Lord has filled in the gaps that we definitely had, and that he's been so gracious to fill. And so all glory goes to him.
Yeah, I love that so very much. I mean, that is how we feel about our homeschooling. We feel like there are just so many gaps. And that's our prayer, our constant prayer. Lord, you just fill it in. It is so neat just to see the hand of God move upon your family and what he's done with it. And what he's still doing, how he's still unfolding this amazing, work in you. And he's doing the same with us, and he's doing it with homeschool families all across the world. Really. It's just been amazing as we have traveled and interviewed families across the country for Schoolhouse Rocked. It's the one thing that we hear the most is that moms always feel inadequate. But if you just show up and trust that God is going to give you what you need, he will always come through. He will always provide what you need in order to accomplish what he's called you to do as a mom and as a homeschool mom. Because you even think about just as a mom, take out the homeschooling, just as a mom, they put this baby in your arms. And I remember I was 31 when Brooklyn was born, and I had been around kids a lot. I couldn't wait to be a mom. And I remember when I took her home, I was like, what do I do with her?
This is for real.
She's not a baby doll, and it's not someone else's child. Like,
yeah, I'm not babysitting.
Wow. Right. This is a big responsibility. And we serve a faithful God who does give us everything that we need. So thank you so much for your time today. I love talking with you. I love your family, and we are very grateful. And again, I'll link back to 7 Peas in a Pod to the book in the show notes so people can find that. I highly recommend picking it up. So
enjoyed being here.
Yes, and thank you guys for listening. Have a great rest of your day, and go out and encourage a homeschool mom somewhere who is feeling inadequate, and she just needs to know that God's going to get her through this, and that she is enough because God is enough.
That's right.
And have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.